in certain segments of society, we've already reached a matriarchal society. In other segments of society, we're heading towards a matriarchal society extremely quickly. And in the very top elite segments, we're tiptoeing our way towards a matriarchal society. So let me go back and explain. One question relates to the sort of poor and struggling who've been raising children alone and working, and I've talked about them a little bit. I would say you could call that a matriarchal society. It's not really clear what the roles are for men in parts of society where women are raising children alone and have higher employment rates than men, vastly higher employment rates than men, and where a lot of the men are in prison. So I think we could safely call that a matriarchal society. Then there's the next level of kind of working class and somewhat middle class. These terms are hard right now because the middle class is so quickly disappearing, but let's take people with some degree of college education. The excerpt of my book that's about to run in the New York Times Magazine describes this very clearly, and it's coming out in about a week. But there, what you have is men who have been working in the manufacturing class, doing really well in the manufacturing class, and in the manufacturing class, and doing so well that they are solidly, easily considered comfortably middle class. I mean, making like $70,000, $100,000 a year. And sometimes their wives have worked as teachers, or maybe not. It just hasn't been that critical what the wives do. And then suddenly that segment of society kind of falls apart. I mean, they not only do they lose their jobs, they lose their sense of identity. They lose the way that they've thought of themselves and lived for so many years. And so the wives' jobs and regular paychecks become incredibly critical and crucial to these families who are now at the phase where they're either sending their kids to college or, or even have younger kids. And so, there you have, I would say, a nascent and reluctant matriarchal society. The women don't want to be supporting their families. They're not feminists. They're not progressive feminists. In the town where I reported this particular chapter, the standard definition for feminism is still bra burning. Honestly, from women of like every single age, they would die if I called them feminists. But it's just their reality. They've suddenly ended up as the head of their families. And so, when a reality like that shifts, everything shifts around it. Dynamics between two people who love each other, dynamics between children, what the next generation picks up about who's going to work and who's not going to work. Everything subtly shifts. I mean, that's what they always say is the difference between racism and sexism. Sexism changes a little more quickly because everybody, has a mother, and lots of people have wives and girlfriends and children, and so you see that things are changing all around you, and so you change accordingly. You might be really resentful. I'm not saying you're changing and it's all happy and lovey, but things do start to change. And then in the upper classes, we obviously don't have a matriarchal society. We clearly have men in power in lots of segments of society. It's the weird pyramid structure you have now where you take certain, like law firms is the classic example everyone brings up, where you have more women than men graduating from law school, climbing up the ladder, or at least as many women than men, depending on what law school. And then you have this sort of block at the top because there come these realities like who's going to raise the children, and also just because women are powerful doesn't mean we're comfortable around women being powerful. So I think we're quite uncomfortable with women being powerful. So there becomes a place where women can't get past. I think we're close to the tipping point. We're close to having enough men who are working for women, enough women reaching positions of power, and enough images, frankly, in pop culture of not just powerful women, but violent, aggressive women, that we're starting as a society to get our heads around the idea of women being powerful, but we're not quite there yet. We still have these weirdly lopsided hierarchies where you have like women, 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 and then you get to the very top, and there's guys controlling the very top. So that's just the transition moment we're at now, where it's going to take a while for us to become more comfortable with women in ultimate positions of power. But as I always like to say, this has only been going on for like 40 years. I mean, really no time at all. And men have been in power for, 40,000 years? I mean, tens of thousands of years. And so I think we can't expect it to completely flip overnight. That's not how it's happening. And it's also uneven, depending. There's some professions that have gone completely male to female, even at the very top. Like a lot of the great Ivy League presidents, of the most important Ivy Leagues are now women. And so there's some places where you see the transition has already happened. And like the financial sector, you don't really see that at all. So it sort of depends.